All right, let's dive into something pretty radical from Friedrich Nietzsche. What if? What if that constant battle to crush our strongest desires is actually a huge mistake? That's what we're going to unpack today, his powerful case against suppressing our passions.
But first, let me ask you something. You ever feel like you're at war with yourself? You know, that constant fight against your own impulses? Like there's this part of you that you have to conquer, or just shut up. Well, if you have, you're definitely not alone. And that internal war, that's exactly what Nietzsche was getting at.
Okay, so let's break down his diagnosis. For centuries, right? Morality, religion, they've all been teaching us one specific way to deal with our passions. You know, those really intense drives for power, for pleasure, for ambition. And their approach? It's basically all-out war.
So Nietzsche says that these traditional moralists, they look at a really powerful passion and see a dangerous enemy. And their only solution? Just destroy it. Wipe it off the map completely. He called this a sign of intellectual poverty. Basically, it's a simple, crude answer, not a wise one at all.
So why would anyone take this super destructive approach? Well, Nietzsche says it's not about strength, it's actually a sign of weakness. It's a tactic used by people who just don't have that inner sense of power to manage their own intense feelings, what he called their internal eruptions. It's like if you can't control a fire, your only option is to try and stamp it out completely.
Okay, so what happens when you're fighting this war inside yourself? What's the cost? For Nietzsche, this wasn't some abstract idea. There are real casualties. He was seriously concerned about the psychological damage of always pushing things down. Because when you try to destroy a part of yourself, it doesn't just go away. No, it festers.
First up, stagnation. Yeah, when you try to get rid of every single unpredictable impulse, you basically sterilize your own spirit. You become predictable. Life just loses its spark, its vitality. For Nietzsche, chasing this idea of a passionless peace is a total loss of dignity. It just leaves you shriveled up and, frankly, less alive.
And the second cost, this one's a biggie, corruption. See, a passion that's denied a healthy creative outlet doesn't just disappear into thin air. It turns inward. It morphs into this hidden, shameful secret. What he calls this internal wickedness is a direct result of putting yourself in chains. That energy has to go somewhere, and when it's trapped, it usually turns sour.
And that corruption, it leads to something even darker. He calls it a kind of theatrical self-torture. Think about it. The person who's always suppressing their desires starts to develop this deep disgust for life itself. They start punishing themselves for the very impulses they can't get rid of, and it just creates this miserable, never-ending drama inside their own head.
And all of this culminates in what Nietzsche saw as the ultimate tragedy. In our attempt to be virtuous by killing off our passions, we end up murdering our own heroic potential. It's just so ironic, isn't it? The very things that could have been the fuel for our greatest achievements end up becoming the very cause of our downfall. Okay, that's all pretty bleak, right? So if suppression is so destructive, what's the alternative? Well, this is where Nietzsche gets really interesting. He offers up this beautiful, powerful metaphor. He says, instead of being a soldier trying to kill an enemy inside yourself, you should be like a wise gardener tending to a powerful plant. And this is the perfect way to see the two approaches, side by side. You've got the moralist's way. They see a passion, and they think, that's a weed, rip it out. It's a simple, destructive act. But then you have the gardener's way. The gardener sees a powerful plant. They get that it has vitality. So what do? They prune it, they direct its growth, and they harness that energy to create something amazing. It's all about cultivation, not just wiping it out.
Now this is super important. Nietzsche is not saying we should just let our desires run wild. That's not the point. The goal isn't chaos, and it's definitely not a painless existence. In fact, he thought wanting a painless life was basically wanting to be dead. The real goal is to preserve what he calls the noble intensity of our spirit. It's about keeping that fire burning, but learning how to direct its heat towards something truly magnificent. And this idea leads us right to Nietzsche's ideal person, the noble spirit. This is the individual who achieves true mastery over themselves, not by crushing their desires, but through a much higher, more sophisticated form of control. It's the huge difference between being a martyr to your so-called virtues and being the master of your own soul.
Let's look at the key differences here. The common spirit, they see passion as a dangerous enemy, so they use the shackles of suppression, and their goal is just a painless, stagnant life. But the noble spirit, totally different. They see passion as a festival of energy. Their method is self-mastery, a kind of ancient pride.
And their goal? A sovereign, truly self-directed existence.
So how do we actually do that? How do we get there? Well, Nietzsche lays out a kind of path. It starts with this. You have to possess your passions, not let them possess you. It means taking what society might call your wickedness and using it as a bridge to become your own person. The whole point is to transform that raw energy into a creative force and to start treating your desires like festivals, not like shameful secrets you have to hide.
And this right here, this is the ultimate payoff. This isn't just some clever psychological trick. For Nietzsche, this is the foundation of a truly joyful, powerful, life-affirming philosophy. It's about learning to dance with all the parts of yourself. Yeah, even the parts you might call your demons.
And look, don't for a second think this is just some old-school religious problem. Nietzsche was way ahead of his time here. He saw that even in a secular world, we just invent new ways to suppress the human spirit. Today, what does that look like? Maybe it's a corporate culture obsessed with pure utility, or a self-help trend that demands constant, boring moderation. He'd say both of those things just shrivel the soul and stamp out any chance for real greatness.
This is really the heart of what Nietzsche called his gay science, which basically means a joyful wisdom. It's a call for a reevaluation, a complete rethinking of everything we value. He's saying we have to learn to see our so-called dangerous drives not as flaws we need to get rid of, but as the actual fuel for a higher, more creative way of being. This is the kind of person he would eventually call the Übermensch. So we're going to end with this just incredible image from his philosophy. For Nietzsche, the highest form of dignity, the greatest possible achievement, it isn't some quiet, passionless peace. No way. It's the laughter of a spirit that has mastered itself so completely that it can actually joyfully dance with its own eruptions. And that really leaves us with a question to think about, doesn't it? Are we fighting a war with ourselves, or are we learning how to dance?